Hey there. Just waiting for anybody to show up here, if anybody does. All right. Got a couple of people on X. Sorry about that. My YouTube live stream got reported for some reason. So I just had to restart with a new live stream. They apparently that's okay. But it's so ridiculous that I got it's so sad that we're in an age, we're in a day where just talking about things that Donald Trump did or may have done or has been accused of doing can get you banned from YouTube. He can be on YouTube, he can be on social media, but talking about what he did gets you banned or get you get your stream ended halfway through it. It's like people have more of a problem with talking about what he did than the things he actually did. It's so just deplorable. Deplorable. That's like the nicest thing you can say about MAGAs now. Now they're reporting you for just discussing the horrible things he did. So most of my still don't have, I don't know if, let me check something here. I'm going to check and see if the vertical stream on YouTube is working. It does seem to be working. Okay. So some people might be popping on here smartly. So Kitty was here and now she's gone. Anyway, sorry about all the confusion and weirdness and delays. To those of you who are watching from Twitter, or got a couple people from Facebook watching too. So anyway, remember the comments work for everybody. So go ahead and drop one if you have anything to say. I'm going to go ahead and add this PowerPoint thing that I made for this episode to talk about it. Some of this was addressed earlier in part 1 of this show, this episode, which, hopefully will be made available again at some point. I've got Kitty lurking in my background just to monitor the comments feed if we ever get any comments again. But anyway, we've been having a trouble with trolls spamming us. Hey there, you pass. All right, so here we go. We're going to look at the Epstein files are a distraction from the Epstein files. And what we were talking about before is there is so much in there. There's so much in the release that one, you're basically hiding needles in the haystack and saying there aren't any needles because people are going to just pull up enough hay that they're not going to, after a while, people aren't going to want to differentiate the hay from the needles. And as Kitty was pointing out earlier, just because some of the stuff in there might not be true doesn't mean that nothing in there is true. And I think that we're going to end up at that point where if anything in there is not true, then that means that nothing is true. But like, I think she made a really good point. If even 1% of those allegations and affidavits are true, that's a lot of stuff that's true. So you can't just dismiss, well, those are just affidavits. Some of those affidavits might be true. And then, as we were looking at, okay. Somebody asked me an anti-Semitic question I'm not going to respond to. What happened? Somebody filed. I don't know what happened. It just said that my channel was flagged for content, and when I went on, it said something about when I checked to see what the content was, they just said it was about you can't encourage the sexual abuse of children or something. So I just filed an appeal and said, I'm just covering the news here, and we're just discussing the Epstein files. So hopefully they'll review that and take the ding off my record. But it sure looks like somebody just decided they were going to report me as being a pedo because I disagree with Trump. That as a salty bot. Do you want to pop on and explain what you mean by that, Patsy, or you want to lurk in the background right now? She wants to lurk. I'll let you pop on if you want to pop on. So anyway, that's all I know right now. Hopefully it'll get restored. I got some good news though, since we're at a good point to talk about this. I might actually be getting a paid sponsor, so that would be cool if I did. Clintonstein files. ICE did not bring chaos. I mean, Kitty, are you reading this? Can you see this? Chaos. Like, I have seen some apostrophe abuse in my lifetime, but putting an apostrophe in the middle of chaos. Are you saying that the chaos belongs to KO, whoever that is? What is that supposed to mean? That is just, oh my goodness. ICE did not bring chaos to your city. Liberal lunatics brought ICE to your city. Yeah, none of that is true. I doubt you've ever even read a book. I'm surprised you know how to spell ICE. Their job is to flood and attack. Clintonstein files. Yes, yes, yes. As I've said, Epstein, or anybody that is in the Epstein file, anybody that either raped children or abetted the raping of children belongs in prison. Full stop, end of story, no discussion, no qualification, whether it's Bill Clinton or Donald Trump or Stephen Miller or Kermit the Frog. I don't care. Anybody that did it belongs in prison. The white liberal is the enemy of the state, Malcolm X. Oh, look, somebody that's never actually read anything by Malcolm X, quoting Malcolm X. Antichrist is papacy. Okay. I get a couple of YouTube shorts you might want to see. I don't know how long they'll be. No. I'm not sure what you mean for later. TDS libtardation. Yeah, whatever that means. Is a prolific MAGA troll on a lot of channels. Oh, well, welcome to the channel, Paul. Can I ask you a question? I want you to answer this honestly. Do you call her Aunt Mom, or do you call her Mama Aunt? Are you like this? Is it Uncle Dad or Daddy Cousin? Like which one is it? How do you refer to your parents, your double kin? Which one is it? You just call them all double kin, triple kin? How many ways are you and your brother related? And have you had sex with your brother yet? Jeffrey is in the Trumpstein files. I identify as a non-binary, whatever that means. You'd think somebody that's, you know, got a reputation as being a troll would be better at it by now. Like, that's not like MAGAs have zero concept of how humors work. All right, so let's talk about the Epstein files some more. Whoops. So his promise that, and this is the one that they allegedly, you know, this was what they promised on November 19th, 2025, which seems like roughly 6 or 7 years ago right now, but it was only a couple of months ago. Trump signs the Epstein Files Transparency Act into law, which gave them 30 days. And everybody's like, oh, well, you know, the 30 days wasn't a minimum, it was a maximum. He could have released everything the next day, but he didn't. Why didn't he? Anyway, the deadline was November 19th, 2025. He did not release them on December 19th, 2025. He released like a few documents. His promise was complete transparency to the American people. I think it's sufficient. I think it's fair to say he has not upheld that problem. So the release by the numbers, eventually, finally, last week, 3.5 million pages released, 2,000 videos, 180,000 images, 44 days after it was supposed to be due. Not after the constitutional act that forced them to release them at all, 44 days after that, and it's still only a little more than half. But my contention is that they're trying to hide the needles in the haystacks, that they're just throwing so much out there that what's true is hard to distinguish. Fortunately, we have people like Kitty going through it, not just media people, but like actual concerned citizens going through it and finding out and weeding out this stuff. And they're trying to include, like, they got this whole spreadsheet that has just the Trump stuff. But with that, the DOJ has said, oh, you can't trust any of this stuff. So, you know, even the DOJ, which is supposed to be objective on it, is being very, very subjective. Who decided what gets released? Todd Blanche. A man so white, his name literally means white. Previously, Trump's personal defense attorney. I think that, you know, I've heard before people mention, once you're somebody's defense attorney, you kind of never stop being their defense attorney. And Todd Blanche is certainly still acting like Donald Trump's defense attorney, who oversaw 500 lawyers reviewing the documents. And he says we did not protect President Trump. Who says Republicans can't be funny? The Spectacle, what media covered, Trump mentioned 3,000 times. So that, you know, just the volume of times, which actually plays into the hands of what Trump wants. See, they're just trying to get Trump. It's just another trying to get Trump. This is what they do with everything that he does wrong, is they just, you know, Russia. I'm sorry. Russia was actually, Russia did interfere and you did try to help them. You know, and that's according to the Mueller report. Unverified tip line submissions, which not everything is there is true, but there is certainly a possibility that some of it is. And this is a question that I keep kind of going, why were they not followed up on? Why was none of it ever followed up on? Some of these were submitted before the 2020 election, but as Kitty was pointing out earlier, a lot of them were actually, a lot of these allegations came long before 2020. I thought that, you know, most of them were from 2016 or later, but apparently there were a lot that even happened before Trump ever even announced he was going to run for president. Clippings Epstein saved about Trump's politics, which, whatever. Nobody cares about that. Photos from parties in the 1990s and 2000s, when some of these photos are very, very damning. So let me. There's a lot of photos of Trump posing with Diddy. I did not know that. A lot of these kind of like the Diddy thing, I never got into that much. I mean, I know that I saw the one video where he beat the crap out of his, wife or girlfriend or whatever it was. And I heard that there's some pretty disgusting stuff involved with him, but there's only so much sickness you can wrap your head around one, and that one I never dove into it. Now I guess he didn't get convicted of everything or something. They will probably be at a party together in the future. Yeah. I see what you did there. Nice. Yeah, I hear there's a pretty hot club where they're going to be. Okay, they campaign for Scamala. You really are a terrible troll. Like, dude, who writes your material? What's that guy's name? Gutfeld or anyway, Gutfeld? Is that him? Does that guy write your material? Because you're almost as funny as Gutfeld, which is like just somewhere in between a screen door on a submarine and a cancer prognosis. Yeah. Scamala. See, I made a joke about Kamala's name, and I just put an S in front of it, and then I changed the K to a C. See how brilliant I am? As though Don the Con is just, not a thing. Anyway, you're a funny guy, Paul, but licks aren't everything. Tips contain untrue and sensational claims. That's what the DOJ sentiment. And by the way, DOJ, it used to be when you talked about the DOJ, you weren't talking about a partisan organization. Now it is. Many anonymous, no follow-up contact. A lot of them are anonymous, no follow-up contact information. Well, if there's no follow-up contact information, then, it's kind of hard to follow up. But what about the ones that are? Secondhand information, not something can be investigated. Why not? If it's a secondhand information, why can't you go to somebody and say, where did you get this information? Like if somebody reports a kidnapping that they saw, like what is secondhand information? They observed the crime, and so they know something about it. Why can't you follow up on that? I don't understand why that would be something that negates following up on it. Like unless somebody comes in with a confession, because that's the only firsthand information you're going to get, right? Witness statements that clear Trump of wrongdoing also included. Although there's no information that could clear Trump of wrongdoing. All you can have, like there are people, I never saw Trump do this. Well, that just means they never saw it. That doesn't mean it never happened. Who got exposed? This is the part this is where I say, is the Epstein files actually a distraction from the Epstein files? Because I look at the goal, the objective. And Kitty talked me down on this a little bit earlier, but still, 43 names were unredacted. 0 clients' abusers were identified. The victims have suffered more from the release of the Epstein files than the abusers. Some of them had their home addresses exposed, and their abuse accounts were detailed, but none of the information about the clients what was exposed. We don't know. I think, or maybe I'm wrong. But you know, 43 names versus 0. So all this time and energy and whatnot that people are putting into finding out about the Epstein files, but there hasn't been any new information. So to me, the goal of releasing the Epstein files was justice for the victims. And until you start having people that committed the crimes against the victims prosecuted for committing those crimes, you have not released the things, the Epstein files. So they get attention, they get talked about, and then they get dismissed after a couple of news cycles. And then everybody just says, well, we've already been through that. Yeah, they proved Donald Trump's already saying very important people told him he didn't do anything, that they vindicate him. The Epstein file. Oh, wait. Whoops. Kelly. All right. So next, redaction priorities. Let's talk about this. What was actually redacted? Trump's face in a news article. I have no idea why they would feel that needed to be redacted. Whoops, victims' names, including minors. Not all of those were redacted. Victims' home addresses. Not all of those were redacted. Financial records showing payments. Now, that would have been helpful to know. Like, one way you can really know something about who is paying the traffic people or traffic children is like by seeing who paid the traffic children. Co-conspirator memos, those were redacted. Corporate protection agreements, those were redacted. So the things that would actually help us to get justice for the victims have been redacted. But the victims' names haven't been redacted. So what are the priorities here? Questions we're not asking. And this is like we're asking questions about, the thing that Kitty was talking about with the baby and the chickens and all of that. We spent a lot of time talking about that. But like the fake things, and because when you've got the real things and you got all this unverified stuff, then people start putting out hoax stuff. And it's just a lot of chaos and confusion. But something you don't see people discussing, where are the financial records? Epstein was a financier. Why are we not seeing the financial records? Something that we should be able to tell from the grand jury, at least, report being released. Who are the 10 alleged co-conspirators the DOJ previously referenced? There are 10 specific people that have been referenced as co-conspirators. Why are we still not knowing who those 10 were? What's in the 200,000 pages of redactions? And DOJ needs to explain that to Congress. Why did the 2006 FBI investigation expect indictment in May 2007, but Acosta gave him a sweetheart deal? Where is that? Where's the information that talks about the deal? Why aren't we talking about any of that? So Kitty tells me they have lots of financial records. Do we have any that indicate who the it's their I mentioned it. I don't understand. We have people. Okay, so Kitty's on the ball. Kitty, follow Kitty on Twitter. and Blue Sky. She's actually been really keeping up on this, and like I said before, she's got her Epstein wiki. There are some people that are actually staying focused, and she's one of them. But a lot of the mainstream media is not answering these questions. Let me see what this says. Oh. Another thing that's happened is you have a number of people that are resigning. And so just had Kitty just shared this with me. Denmark's United Nations Refugee Agency Director Joanna Rubinstein stepped down after showing up in the Epstein files. She met Epstein at his island and brought her kids. Thank you so much. The kids loved your stories and, of course, your island. And wasn't like Nutlick or somebody seems like there was somebody in the Trump administration, one of the sycophants that like had a family vacation to the island or something. Like, who takes their family to Epstein Island? That's the weird thing. Patsy's got the answer. We have charges coming against the Denmark person in the UK. Okay, sorry. I'm trying to read facial sign language. Okay. Breaking, Peter Mendelsohn has been reported to the police over the latest Epstein files revelations. The S&P said serious allegations are now emerging that sensitive state information may have been passing between Mendelsohn and Epstein. Who is this guy? Peter Mendelsohn reported to police amid new Jeffrey Epstein revelations. The party's Westminster leader, Stephen Flynn, reported the Labour Party appeared to the Metropolitan Police on Monday, asking them to investigate whether there is sufficient. Wow. Okay. So I'm not all that up on British politics, although I probably should be more. It's amazing how informed a lot of people in other countries are about American politics, but we don't have any any awareness at all of theirs. The FBI has had TH. I don't know what that means. What is TH? The FBI has had the Epstein files since 2006. Intelligence has clearly blocked release for over 20 years. And that is another thing that, it came up in the first segment that I think is really striking and something that needs more discussion, is that we need to consider that there's like global implications. Like this is not just a scandal regarding sex trafficking children, which is horrific enough, but it's like the elite and powerful. It's not just the rich and powerful, but also the political elite that are involved in this. It's not just the Prince Andrews of the world. It's this guy, the this Mendelsohn guy. There's people from Qatar and the Middle East and whatnot that it's we don't even really know how far this goes. Somebody really wants to get their anti-Semitic crap on this show. I'm not going to allow that. Where are the, okay, so then, so this pattern should sound familiar. This is something that I thought is a good frame of reference. It messed up the thing, but uh, anybody think of this, like when you're talking about all the affidavits? This might be where they got the idea. I just think of Rudy Giuliani waving the big stack of affidavits, saying that this is proof that the election was stolen. And then people talking about it afterwards, like saying, oh, they didn't rule on the merits. They didn't even look at the affidavits. And it's kind of my concern with, you know, talking about these affidavits as though every one has been verified. The same way that I reacted to the sworn affidavits from the 2020 election, they might be looking at these sworn affidavits against Trump. A sworn affidavit is not proof. It's just a sworn affidavit. It just means somebody said something under oath. I'm not sure how often people get prison time for, you know, having a wrong sworn affidavit. So, anti-Semitic guy is gone. Wow. Epstein files lead to resignation in Slovakia and calls in Britain for former prince to cooperate, Prince Andrew. So I think, here we go. I think this might be a good, like, our hope might actually be in the rest of the world. Let me put this up there. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Okay. So Trump DOJ takes down thousands of, oh no, whoops, that's not the right one. Where did the, sorry. All right, maybe this is this one? Yeah. Trump DOJ takes down thousands of Epstein docs after admitting it exposed victims. The Trump administration admitted to a court that Justice Department had to remove thousands of files from the latest. Thought there was something in here about. So that's, I was thinking it was something else. But anyway, to get back to my point, trying to follow, you know, I've got Kitty in the studio in the background, and she's sending me things that she's finding that are relevant. But I'm not like pre-reviewing these. Trump can't control the Department of Justice for the rest of the world. He can only control the Department of Justice for here. But as we start going into these things and we see this government being affected, this prime minister or this, you know, what the person from Denmark, the person from England, you know, there's probably going to be some other people, some other heads that start to roll. And all of these things are connected. And eventually it's going to start unraveling here. And then we'll find out, why is Pam Bondi covering for the Americans while everybody else in the world is prosecuting their predators? We are letting ours walk, and why? And, you know, there's so many MAGAs that want to just make this about what about Biden or whatever. You know, why didn't Biden do it? Well, that doesn't matter. What matters is what we're doing going forward. If you want to say Biden was wrong, fine, Biden was wrong. That doesn't make Trump right. Have you ever heard of Agartha? No, I have not. I have no idea what Agartha is. Let me ask. I've never heard of Agartha. I'll see if Claude has. Agartha is a legendary underground kingdom or city that appears in various esoteric and occult traditions. The concept gained popularity in the late 19th and 20th centuries, particularly through European occult literature. So are you saying that this is what this is Agartha? Is that what you're saying, Cripple Floyd? Breaking, Ghislaine Maxwell now claims that every time that something illegal was happening at the Epstein Island, Donald Trump was in the other room reading a Bible, holding Melania's hand. The Epstein is fake. Huh. Oh, okay. So that's when I was like, how is my took me off guard there. I was like, how is she posting from my Facebook, or who's posting from my Facebook page? But I will follow those. Can you send me those on Blue Sky or something so I have access to those names afterward, or on X would be better. But Trump is innocent. Yes, he's as pure as the driven snow. He's never lied. He's never pooped his pants. He's never farted in public. He's never, ever done anything that he has ever been accused of. He didn't steal a bunch of documents. He didn't rape anybody. He didn't violate anybody. He never grabbed a vagina. The Epstein files are fake. Well, that's an opinion. I voted for Trump. So he has never done anything wrong. He could not possibly do anything wrong. He literally has fathered several children, but he's still a virgin. That's how pure he is. The left lied. Oh, yes, the left. The left is a single person that told the lie. Like, do you guys ever think about how you sound? Do you think you win arguments by saying things like the left lied? Like, oh, yeah? All right. So hang on, just left cooked. I don't know what that means. Like, what does that mean? My favorite kind of acetaminophen is Tylenol Rapid Release, the Epstein files. Like, just release them all. Just release everything. Release everything according to the way the law was written. Like, why is that so hard? Redact the victims, not the culprits. They don't do it the other way around. Why is that so hard? There is no evidence. Is there? How do you know there's no evidence? If you don't release the files unredacted, then how do you know there's no evidence? How do you know that there's not evidence that is simply being hidden? How do you know that none of the affidavits are true? Because if some of the affidavits are true, then there is evidence. We can't know if those verified emails are real. So it's the same guy who believed Wayfair shipped kids into coffee tables, and an office pizza order was code for child sex trafficking, right? It's like they're very, very suspicious. I mean, they still think that New York rewrote their laws just to get Trump. They still think that somehow the whole thing about Donald Trump stealing those, government files was just made up, or that Donald Trump can just declassify things with the power of his thinking. They're fake. Trump stated he's never been. Yeah, the Epstein files and Epstein Island have nothing to. I mean, they're not the same thing. Like you can look at it. Most of the illegal trafficking activity did not happen on Epstein Island or on Epstein's airplanes. Most of the damage was done by was done in the homes, especially in Palm Springs, where, by the way, Donald Trump lived like less than a mile away from him. Have you read any of the evidence release? That's right. Like you can't just like deny the evidence exists when it just you haven't looked at the evidence at all. Trump said he's never been to the island. That's okay. I want you to take a seat, okay? I just want you to sit down. I want you to think about this, because I know this is going to be hard for you. I know that MAGAs have trouble accepting this. So just really take a breath, take a seat. Sometimes Donald Trump says things that aren't true. I know. It's hard. But sometimes Donald Trump says untrue things. And also, whether he's been to the island or not is kind of moot, because just because he's never been to the island does not mean that he never did anything illegal with Epstein. Well, Trump didn't do anything. That is an opinion, but it's more of a belief than an opinion, because opinions are based on facts. Opinions or beliefs are just based on hope. What's your point? My point is that so much stuff has been released and it's been released in such a way that it occupies people looking for things and distracts them from what's not there. What isn't there is clients, the names of clients, the names of the people that assisted Epstein Maxwell, the people that hired or that paid for the women or the girls and the boys. We keep saying women, but Patsy's right. It's both males and females, and they were minors, all of them. They were children that were trafficked. People paid for them. Rich and powerful people paid for them. And none of those rich and powerful people who paid to have sex with children, paid to rape children, none of them have been prosecuted, and they should be. And so my point is that when we're sitting there just fixating on what Trump did and didn't do, we're missing the point of the whole thing, which is people should be getting prosecuted. And again, I've said it so many times. I don't care if Trump did anything or didn't do anything. I don't care if Clinton did anything or didn't do anything. My goal is to see everyone that did something prosecuted. And I have yet still to see a MAGA that can just say that. In a recent filing, the DOJ alleged that they can't be compelled to release the Epstein files. Yet nothing says innocence like refusing to prove your innocence. And The DOJ actually doesn't work for Donald Trump. I know that's a shocker. But Todd Blanche is apparently still Donald Trump's defense attorney and still acting like it. He's said a bunch of stuff. LOL. That's how the grocery bill and tax cuts. Yes, it's to the point. If Donald Trump said the sky is blue, I would run outside to see what the hell happened to the sky. What? It's a stunner, ain't it? Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump flees to the Middle East to his new golf course there. I think if he maybe Saudi Arabia dude, the Prince guy, that sawed up the journalist, I can't think of his name. The left is evil and made this up to get voters. Okay. What did they make up to get voters? Trump's name is in the files more than anyone else. Kitty, how many times is his name in the files? I think am I right? Is it like 4,000 or something? He's been on the plane more than anyone else and was best friends with a known child trafficker for 15 years. Common sense isn't too common. And this, like, to me, this is like people will say, well, this person associated with Epstein even after they knew that, even after he was convicted. And by associated, they mean received campaign contributions, which not excusing that. But that is not at all the same thing. Donald Trump was one of Jeffrey Epstein's closest personal friends during the entire time that he was running his sex trafficking operation. He was in Epstein's address book like 13 times. He facilitated the introduction of Melania Trump, his wife, to Donald Trump. He there's video of them enjoying being at parties together where sex was a big element of the parties. They were there's more videos, I haven't seen them, but Patsy was telling me that there's a lot more videos about this, or where they were at parties, not just the GIF where they're at the Playboy channel that everybody's watched 1,000 times. Like, there is a legitimate connection between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein that goes back through the entire time that he was involved with all this sex trafficking stuff. And it's like, I don't care if he's on Epstein Island or not, or Lolita Airline or whatever. There's enough connection with him that it is a reasonable question to ask whether or not he did anything illegal. Like, if my best friend were, trafficking sex children for 15 years and getting billions of dollars off of doing it, I think I might notice. What do you think of Saudis buying into Trump's family crypto business? I think they did more than buy into it. I think that they created it. There is some serious corruption stuff going on there. Donald Trump has made billions of dollars off of being president in his first term. I think the latest I've seen, it was at least $4 billion he made off of being president in the first term. But he gives up his salary. Yeah, he literally pardoned the guy that created his cryptocurrency. Well, I'm sorry. He pardoned the former CEO of Binance. And then after he pardoned the CEO of Binance and he was walking around free, Binance created the cryptocurrency that Trump, created Trump's cryptocurrency. It's hard to look at those two dots and not connect them. I want Trump's flight records. And I mean, what about his GPS records? I mean, I know that's kind of impossible, but again, he didn't have to jump on a plane and fly Lolita Airlines to get to trafficked children. All he had to do was just drive down the street. Okay, got another. Okay. This is minimally Trump turned a blind eye. Okay, so so this is something that Kitty shared with me. Wow, no one found this horrific Trump mention in the Epstein files because it was handwritten letter that wasn't indexed properly by the DOJ. How convenient. And let me just come back over here. Kitty, you verified that this is actually there? Okay. This woman alleges that Donald Trump was involved with Jeffrey Epstein in the sale of young women to the sex trafficking ring of Epstein and the Saudis. She also claims that Trump forced her to miscarriage after she got pregnant. See the entire 32-page letter to on the DOJ website. Wow. Yeah, that's going to be too hard to. I can't read all that right now. But that is, I wonder how they, this is the champion of abortion rights or pro-life, right? I guess it's okay if abortions, like no exception for life, for health of the mother, but abortions to cover up for the rape of a child by a billionaire is okay. Because then it's not abortion, it's a forced miscarriage. Here's the link to the document. It's like you got to verify you're over 18 to just open the link. That's how disgusting some of this stuff is. All right, so here's the link to the document if anybody wants it. Okay. I think he did a ton of terrible things. Just like every other person in power with money, we all know that they're awful and don't care about the law or well-being of anyone, especially children. Right, left, same thing. I don't know if everything is the same. I think that's just poisoning the well. Anybody that, like I don't, because essentially what you're doing then is just excusing anything Donald Trump did because the left does it too, which is one, the left doesn't always do it true, and not everybody on the left does it true. And it takes the individuality out of it. Whatever Donald Trump personally did, Donald Trump is personally responsible for. And just saying the left is bad too doesn't make him not responsible for his own crimes. Hillary Clinton is in the files. Trump isn't. That part is a fake. Epstein hated Trump. Okay. I don't even. That's just weird. Playboy channel does not I don't know what did somebody I don't know where I don't know what this has to do with the Playboy channel. 38 trillion in debt. He spent 8 and 4. Then we sold chips to some guy. To same guy. I don't understand what that means. Some guy, same guy. Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. Then we the cryptocurrency. Like it got the value of it got bought or got inflated by buying a bunch of them, the same group that made them. How did you get to the conclusion where they are literally saying what you just said and summarize to be critique, be specific? I don't know what that means. How did I get what are you saying that we are saying the same thing? You are asking a man who already has money to make more money and taking a position as the leader of a country to make more money. Yeah, of course there's incentivization. I don't know what that means. I think that there is a problem with somebody that is the president of the United States using the power of the pardon to make billions of dollars. MAGA freaked out when Hunter Biden sold a painting. You won't subscribers play Larry June, the smooth kind, and I don't know what that means. I don't know if you're doing speech to text, but this is not like I can't figure out what the sentence is supposed to mean. There's not enough sentence structure to figure it out. Well, it's also a very smart man who's using, well, he's not very smart. I mean, it's not like he had to do anything other than pardon somebody. It's just like, hey, pardon us and we'll make sure that you get billions of dollars in cryptocurrency. It's funny how he flipped his understanding and views on cryptocurrency once they started paying him in cryptocurrency. So Hillary Clinton is in the files. Okay, yeah, you already said that. You can clarify the man who made the system. You can say he's wrong, but you're using it. So what's the point of actually not understanding history? Because a lot of systems are already used by people who are using a very dirty system that say that, all right, the problem here is that he pardoned a man who then created a cryptocurrency for him that is worth billions of dollars. So yes, I have a problem with somebody selling somebody that pardons for billions of dollars when the thing he is pardoning him for is laundering money for the drug cartels. I think that when you're president of the United States, you should not be laundering people that laundered or pardoning people that laundered money for drug cartels because they paid you billions of dollars. That's why I have a problem with that, and I really don't understand why you don't have a problem with that. Saying other people did other things wrong doesn't make that wrong things Trump did okay. You seem to be heavily medicated. It's about Democrats. It's allegedly and must be proven, but if it's about Republicans, no proof is necessary and they are guilty. In what way do you feel I'm saying that? I have said repeatedly, anybody who helped sex traffic children should be prosecuted. I've never said any qualifier about Democrats or Republicans. You can never use anybody as a big protagonist or the biggest evil without actually describing itself and then saying and to antagonize nothing, but only give very simplistic. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm trying to figure out what you're trying to say. I realize you might be using text to speech, so things aren't coming out clearly. Um, it's no wonder no one is watching you. Okay, well, sorry. We then sold chips to the same Saudi man. What your government did not want to do because of technology being given to China. I don't know what. Oh, you're talking about the chips. Oh, you're talking about the. I'm sorry. I see what you're going on. Or what you're discussing is the AI chips, the chips that are used for AI. Yeah, I think there's this whole thing with the AI that's concerning and pretty much ignored. And I'll be nice. I agree that you have the freedom. Absolutely. I agree that. But also, no, one thing that you clarify is don't talk about that the man you hate, talk about the policy he makes. Okay. I do not hate Donald Trump and then hate everything he says because I hate Donald Trump. I want to make this clear. I have not changed my perspective on anything because of Donald Trump. I haven't. I hated the idea. I hated racism before Donald Trump. I hated fascism before I hated Donald Trump. I do not hate Donald Trump and therefore hate those things. I hate those things and therefore hate Donald Trump. I'm not going to try and be objective and pretend that those things aren't wrong anymore because Donald Trump does them. My opinion of Donald Trump is based on who Donald Trump is, what he does, and all of that. That said, I don't understand what your issue is. You act like I'm being inconsistent. I'm being 100% consistent. If you can understand that he turns a blind eye, did he turn it? What is the function on the conjunction to the conjunction with how he did do what was the problem? What is the problem? It's not that I can't understand what he's doing. I can't understand what you're saying. Like you're not speaking in actual sentence structures. Like I cannot figure out what you're like. I don't even know how to interpret what you're saying. Are you from a different country and you're trying to pop this into some kind of language bot? Like I don't understand what the question is. Do you understand what he's asking, Patsy? Like I just do not understand this question at all. If you cannot understand he turns a blind eye, how did he turn it? What is the function of conjunction with how did he do it? What was the problem with what is the accusation? What is the problematic value? I have no idea what that means. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm telling you, I'd love to answer your question if I could figure out what it is. God loves you. He does. Look at the context of the paper. Well, that's what we had Patsy on to talk about. She's looked at them. Have you looked at anything? The problem here is not what I have looked at or what other people have looked. You want to dismiss everything that comes from people who have looked at it when you haven't. So anyway, we'll come back. We'll get to your comments again when you can speak English, because I am just like tired of trying to figure out what you're saying. Just like whatever Bill and Larry and Robert and all the others did needs to be addressed. Yes, Bill. I guess you mean Bill Clinton. I don't know who Larry and Robert are. Larry, Lutnick. Robert, I don't, who's Winch Larry and Robert? I wonder if it is Trump. I wonder if Trump has a ghost account. Oh, Robert Kennedy Jr., yeah. And Larry Summers. Oh, yeah. Robert Kennedy Jr., or as I refer to him, Screech. No, it's not that I can't read it. I'm saying that your sentence structure is indecipherable. Like you're not using subject, verb, direct object. You're not actually typing sentences. It's like you're just typing random words in any weird order. If you look for the evil target and you consider him the most evil, then you will always target him no matter what. Well, there's at least a cogent sentence. And I'm not looking for an evil target. And I'm not considering him the most evil. So it's not that I'm always targeting him no matter what. I am looking at evil events and looking at who did those evil events. And then I am saying that the evil events done by this evil person, or that the person doing these evil events is evil. I am not, my starting position is not who Trump is. My starting position is what Trump did, what Trump is doing. An emotional argument. I'm not using an emotional argument. And I don't even know what policy you're referring to. Do you see these companies that bet on predictions? Someone bet a half hour before Maduro kidnapping and profited heavily. Don Jr. works with both prediction companies. Wow, that's interesting. Where, oh my God, what did you, all right. I haven't contradicted myself. Oh, that's the DOJ has the Epstein files behind a wall that says you have to be over 18 to view the Epstein files. You're just too weird. What is the talk? Yeah. Talk to text. Sometimes speech to text. It will present the wording in a way that's like sounds like it's misinterpreting what you're saying, and so like if you look at it a little bit, you can kind of figure it out. But the thing with Keith's words, it's just word salad. What a world of a lot of worlds that is still dealing with a country that is so dominant, but understanding of other countries on how they dominate in their own specific areas. See, this is what I mean. This is just a bunch of words thrown out. It's not about whether or not I can, have reading comprehension. There's nothing comprehensible to read. I am not a communist. I know this because I'm not. What a wonderment, how many, anyway. Okay, boomer, still not a communist. The USA and Mexico are in cahoots with drug cartels. This seems to not be really relevant. So when, I mean, like whether it's true or not, so then anyway, you're back to, I'm not. It's literally your own system against you, and you live in why you can't understand it. I don't even know what system is it. What is my own system? But you're asking another man who can literally not care how you develop, neither question. And the answer to Roe is the fallacy that you die. consequences of understandability, and also how your education system works and how you accumulate that knowledge and how you can problem solve is quite more beneficial. I'm your age. If anybody else can figure out what Keith is trying to say, let me know. I'm your age, and nobody, Republican or Democrat, is going to jail over Epstein files. And we will never know the whole truth of how much different people were involved. Both parties knew about Epstein. Well, I think that this is, in the first half before I got reported for like talking about the Epstein files. I think one thing that Kitty pointed out is that is really helpful is it doesn't have to be the DOJ that brings the first prosecutions. There are other states that are looking into bringing state prosecutions based on what has been released in the Epstein files. This is maybe something that they did not think far enough ahead. Define fascism. We've been down this road so many times, but I'm not going to define fascism just to humor a sea lion. There's like I had a whole week on fascism. We can cover it again another time, but I know what fascism is. That you say define fascism, though, just shows me you don't know what fascism is. Fascism is not an ideology. It is a government that has a series of traits and characteristics. No, people like you have made terms like fascist meaningless because you won't understand what it is. You refuse to accept what it is. And so then, rather than actually learn something, you just get so much into denial that even when there is actual fascism happening, you sit there and you just scream, no, 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 and decree that anybody that uses the word doesn't know what fascism is. The Second Amendment flippers accusing you don't even see the irony. Yes. The ones that are, I assume you're talking about Alex Preddy, and as soon as Alex Preddy had a gun, then it was like, why are you bringing a gun to a protest? As though Kyle Rittenhouse didn't bring a gun to a protest. And as though Alex Preddy was at a protest. Are there actually psychos defending? There are always psychos defending Trump. Okay. Maybe maybe try shorter sentences or something, because you just go like this. It ends up just being hard to figure out what you're actually trying to get at. Is there a grass? If there is grass on the field, play ball, says MAGA. That's if she's old enough to bleed, she's old enough to breed. That's the MAGA philosophy. Maybe not even then. And don't forget about the boys. Not complete sentence. Whatever absolute you have, guys have a. I don't have a personal vendetta against anyone. Trump's cryptocurrency firm, World Liberty Financial, sold a $500 million stake to a member of the Emirati royal family shortly before his inauguration last January, the Wall Street Journal reported. Wow. Derp drool. I think the Second Amendment mean I have the right to fight federal law enforcement while armed. Well, aren't you the ones that have been saying that, like, this is the irony, that for years you guys have been saying that the Second Amendment is there to protect us from an over tyrannical government. And so you have somebody like at a, according to you, somebody protesting while carrying a firearm. How is that? How do you not see the conflict? Like, is it only your version of tyrannical government? You have the Donald Trump and the Trump administration violating our First Amendment rights. Now our Second Amendment rights, our Third Amendment rights. I didn't even know. Like, Third Amendment was one of the ones I couldn't even remember. Now I know why they have it there. our Fourth Amendment rights, our Fifth Amendment rights, our Sixth Amendment rights, our Eighth Amendment rights, our Ninth Amendment rights, and our 10th Amendment rights, and our 11th Amendment rights, and our 14th Amendment rights. They're sitting there trampling all over all our rights. And you have somebody protesting that they are doing our rights. And they happen to be exercising their Second Amendment rights while they are exercising their First Amendment rights. And so you're saying that's grounds to murder them. That's how weird you are. That's the whole reason you've been saying that we have a Second Amendment. This person is not giving complete sentences, so it is not communicating anything concrete. Well, it's like it's like a series of stitched together fragments. Well, I'm not from America. Why should I care? That's the absolute. I never said you should care. I'm just saying I'm trying to understand what you're saying. And you're facing off with a proprietary sum. See, like this, and you're facing off with a proprietary sum country. I have no idea what that means. Larry Summers. What is the point you don't look into my country? I don't even know what country is yours. Anyway, okay. No wonder Trump's biggest supporters are. It's like, do you get paid in rubles or dollars, dude? Neither side will ever. So then both sides. I think that the Kennedy assassination is. I think he just got shot by a guy. I think pretty much everything has been explained over and over again. Sorry, Rodney. How far am behind am I? Good luck. I just don't want to expand my life energy on people who support people in the administration, so I just block them in chats. Yeah. Okay, let me guess. I demand you to find fascism or the government will make you submit. That's actually true, though it's gross. I think you're talking about how you need to be 18 to look at the Epstein files. Poor Nancy Pelosi. I don't know what the. I think she's in a minimum security prison to keep silent about what she knows about Trump. Okay, I don't know what this has to do with anything, but your entire premise that we have the right to bear arms to protect us from an overreaching government. And then you're contradicting that by saying he shouldn't have been armed while he was protesting a tyrannical government. Like, by your definition of Second Amendment, it should be perfectly okay for somebody to use their weapon against a tyrannical government. That's why you say it's there. Do you understand the contradiction that I'm pointing out? I've been saying that it's a ridiculous notion that the Second Amendment was written to protect us against a tyrannical government for years. I think that is not a real. Heller is bogus. It's a stupid, stupid decision written by the NRA and NRA apologists. It is not true that they intended that, because exactly what you're saying. You're just giving carte blanche to people to shoot anybody from the federal government you don't agree with. But in the case of Alex Preddy, he never even touched his gun. And he never was a threat to anybody. And to use lethal force, there has to be an actual immediate threat to the life of somebody. And there was no immediate threat to the life of somebody. So Alex Preddy was murdered. They didn't even know he had a gun when they maced him, tackled him, gang jumped him, pistol whipped him, and then they disarmed him, and then they shot him. Stop with the nonsense. There's enough nonsense going on in the world. You don't need to repeat it. Your concealed permit. Read a book. Do you know what the difference between Kyle was? He wasn't fighting federal agents. You're a dumb moron. Okay. But you said that you can't bring a gun to a protest. This has nothing to do with who was fighting federal agents. And Alex Preddy wasn't fighting federal agents. Alex Preddy was attacked by federal agents. He was not fighting federal agents. Conceal and carry is legal if you... There was no venue posted otherwise. He was just on a city sidewalk. And there wasn't even a protest going on. No, I don't think Joe Biden trampled my rights, and I don't think that it matters. Joe Biden wasn't like the one that was sitting there saying, you don't even need a search warrant anymore to break into somebody's house and pull them out. You know, I appreciate this response, Josh. John, I think that this is at least these are the, like, I think some people feel like they have to defend everything that happens because they defend Trump. And it's like, at least you can say, okay, I disagree with, I agree with Trump on most things, but I disagree with this. So thank you for that comment. They have some human rights, but not civil rights our citizens have. Who is they that have human rights but not civil rights our citizens have? What do you know about the actual case history here? Here's the thing. Okay, if they can come and, like, right now, they can come and they can drag somebody out of their house, detain them, and then deport them without ever even hearing a defense. They are telling American citizens they don't believe in their documents. They are telling people that are legitimately, legally here. A 5-year-old child was illegally detained and only released by court order. That was legally here. An actual asylum seeker. And they told him, if you self-deport, we'll let your child go. All right. You're talking about legal versus illegal. They were here legally. American citizens are here legally. And then when they're shot and Donald Trump says mistakes happen. That's why you have due process, dude, because mistakes happen. That's why you need to have actual warrants to arrest people. Actual warrants to search for homes. Because mistakes happen. That's why you have due process. So that people can establish their legality. Because mistakes happen. And those are all things that the Supreme Court has determined are rights, whether you're here legally or not, whether you're a citizen or not. The Fifth Amendment, I think it is, says that these rights apply to all people. It does not say all citizens. This is a false dichotomy, Mike. You you can have protests and a fascist regime when the fascist regime starts talking about sending the military against the protests. That proves that it is actually fascist. When the government starts literally shooting people on the street for protesting, that's pretty darn fascist. You can do anything if you have a conceal and carry. No, I'm saying that the Second Amendment logic that the NRA uses, that says that it is there to defend yourself against a tyrannical government. If you extend that logic, then that would mean using your gun against a tyrannical government is protected by the Constitution. All right. Who defines what a tyrannical government is? Does it just mean that you don't agree with it? Like, why is that not a Second Amendment right? If the Second Amendment is to protect you and your right to take arms against the federal government when it's overreaching, then how do you then say that Alex Preddy shouldn't have had a gun when he was at a protest? Does he not have the Second Amendment right that you have been advocating for, you, the NRA, for decades? I don't know about that. Okay, but if he should have been arrested for kicking out that taillight is sort of irrelevant. And he didn't attack federal officers either time. He kicked a taillight out of a car. He didn't touch an officer. And they attacked him. He tried to help a woman to her feet. I think ICE in Minnesota are doing. Look. Trump is a fascist, but he cannot take over everything all at once. Eventually, he will curb. Yeah, all media is saying he's saying he hasn't taken over YouTube yet. Is nothing. Yet is no proof of anything, and that's the thing is. Hitler did not like do everything the day he took over, and it was like sometimes you see this comparison of, well, he hasn't killed 6 million Jews. Trump hasn't killed 6 million Jews. And it's like, he doesn't even, and part of me wants to say yet, but then it's like, okay, he hasn't gone into killing 6 million Jews. That doesn't mean he's not a fascist. That doesn't mean the comparisons aren't fair. Is 40% of Hitler okay with you? 50%? Like, how much like Hitler can he get before you're not okay with it anymore? He's literally quoting Hitler, right? Or using at least his arguments about the immigrants being the blood of the people. We're building what are essentially concentration camps across the country. He's got his own, Gestapo ICE forces. I even, they can go into your house with what they call an administrative warrant, which means that they can just decide that they give themselves warrants. What's the point of the Fourth Amendment if you can just give yourself a warrant? And they can go into your house and drag you out. And it doesn't even matter if you're an American citizen. Just ask that Laotian guy. And so then they can do that. And they can detain you, whether you're here legally or not. Ask the Blue Bunny kid. They've arrested over 170 American citizens. Some have been held for days, even though they could prove that they were citizens. Maybe we're calling them fascists, because they're fascist. Maybe the ones that need to look up what a fascist is are the people that are denying it. So I think I got a little mean because my wife came in and gave me the stop being mean look. About 10 minutes ago. No Cash Patel said that he doesn't speak for Trump voters. And I keep hearing I voted for this. Just how the left didn't kill Charlie because we don't agree with him. A single individual killed Charlie Kirk, and we don't even know what his motivations were or where he sits on the political spectrum. He had a SIG 320. It was discharged and uncommanded when the officer. So he pulled the gun and walked away with it, and it may have discharged while he was walking away with it. How does that make Alex Preddy responsible? Everybody saw the gun be removed from him. Everybody that was like beating him and shooting him saw he didn't have the gun anymore. Stop with this excuse. He was shot 10 times to 12 times by people that were armed when he was not armed. It was just murder. That's why the FBI won't investigate it, because they know that if they do, they have to prosecute those murderers. What does the Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1790 have to do with what we're talking about? It is logically and morally inconsistent, but those supporting are intellectually and morally idiotic. Well, that is also true. Preddy went there with the. Did you know that it is a constitutional right to do what Preddy was doing? Why do you have issues with people exercising their constitutional rights? Blaring your horn or warning immigrants is perfectly legal. Everyone in America has civil rights aside from gun ownership and voting in federal elections. Illegal aliens have rights. Yes, they do. There weren't any riots. Calling something a riot doesn't make it a riot. There is no footage of him at riots. Because believe it or not, I know this is going to be hard for your brain to comprehend. There really haven't been any riots in Minneapolis. There's just been protests. And there's been people observing, which is a legal right. Anyway, none of this makes Donald Trump relationship with Epstein go away. Were they supposed to leave the child in? No, they weren't supposed to detain the parents who were here legally. They were legal asylum seekers. They never were supposed to detain anybody. No, but they're here legally. See, first it was just the baddies of the baddies. Then it's like, oh, well, they're still criminals because they crossed illegally. Now it's, well, they're asylum seekers, therefore they're not citizens. Even now you're even advocating for locking up 5-year-old children because their parents sought asylum legally. Now you've got they're going to go to Ohio and arrest all the Haitians that came over here legally. At what point to you does it become about the law? I've said before, and I mean this, you can't defend the law if you break the law. You can't enforce the law if you break the law to enforce it. If you break the law to enforce the law, there is no law. The father ran and left. No, that's not true. That's been debunked, and it doesn't matter. The father was here legally. The 5-year-old was here legally. That's what Fred said. Well, they haven't been. At least not legally. I mean, the Fourth Amendment is there. And if they have been, I don't know what you're referring to. And I don't know why you feel like that's a thing that needs to be, like, I don't know what you're trying to prove by pointing that out. If that is happening, then that means that something that is happening shouldn't be happening. No due process in, no due process out. Well, what about you're kind of missing the point, dude. By your logic, any due process out, it meant no due process in. That's the whole point of due process. If you can deny due process to non-citizens, all the government has to do is say you aren't a citizen. Yes, exactly. Why is that so hard for people to understand? What are you going to do? Prove otherwise? Where? When? How? You think that you think any of these 170 actual citizens who were detained didn't try and say, hey, I'm a citizen, let me prove it? This is the problem with no due process, is if you don't have due process for everyone, you don't have due process for anyone. No, I can absolutely tell that you have never read a book. They're here illegally, so they don't have the. You just keep saying the same mind-numbingly dumb thing. There is a process. Dems flooded. Yes, the Dems flooded the country with illegals by following the asylum laws. They didn't create. Anyway. Bond agents don't need search warrants. No, but they need arrest warrants. Like, you can't just go into somebody's house and say, I'm a bond agent. They used Liam as bait. There's something called the I want to say it's the Flores Agreement. And back in I want to say 96 or 98, it was under Clinton. The FBI used to do a thing where they would detain children in order to get the parents to come claim the children and then deport the whole family. And the thing is this is harmful to the children. Like, you can blame the parents and say, well, the parents shouldn't be put in this position of having to either, have their entire family deported and destroy risk dying, or have their children, like, locked up in prison. And so it was actually, I think, the Lutheran Church. It was like the Lutheran Church used to be big into defending the civil liberties of asylum seekers. In case you didn't know, they were actually, if you look at the case law and you go back, it's almost always the Lutheran Church that was defending the rights of asylum seekers. And so then there was an agreement that you could only hold the children of, or you could only detain children for 3 days, and you had to find somebody that was like a sponsor, a friend, or a relative, or something like that. And so this is in the same spirit of as that, and it was called the Flores Agreement. And one of the things that Obama got heavily criticized for is that there were all these kids that came over, and there was under Bush there was something called a child, or under Bush, I'm sorry, there was it was called unaccompanied minors. There was a law passed that unaccompanied minors that weren't here with their parents, could be granted asylum automatically, or not granted asylum. I think granted a petition for asylum automatically, like they automatically qualified to apply for asylum. And that was because most of the minors that were coming in were being sex trafficked. And this way they could secure testimonies against the sex traffickers. Because if they didn't do that and they just deported people, then the sex traffickers could just like kill them. And so they could request asylum automatically, and it would automatically be given like an asylum hearing date and all that. And so then under Obama, it started to circulate. People were like literally passing around flyers talking about how all you had to do was go to America and apply for asylum, children. So parents who wanted better things for their children were sending their children over unaccompanied. And since they were unaccompanied, they would get asylum. And there was just these mass waves of children that were coming over. And because they were coming over in such volume, Obama couldn't, the Obama administration couldn't find homes for them fast enough. And so they started expending, they started being detained longer than the 3 days. And there was a lot of criticism of Obama from both the left and the right for going over that 3-day agreement in Flores. So anyway, this is all connected. This is just, they are even now just weaponizing detaining children again. And again, that family was here legally. I don't know what the Cloward Pivens strategy is. Let me look that up. If I learned something new today, good. Did I remember that right? Okay, let me. So okay. Cloward Pivens. Okay, hang on. Okay. Just waiting for political theory proposed by Columbia University sociologist Richard Cloward, Francis Fox Piven in their 1966 article, The Weight of the Poor, A Strategy to End Poverty in America, published in The Nation. Cloward and Piven argued that many poor people eligible for welfare weren't enrolled in programs. They suggested that mass mobilization to sign up all eligible people would overwhelm the welfare system with demand, create a fiscal and administrative crisis, force the federal government to respond, ideally lead to replacement with a guaranteed minimum income or smaller universal program. Interesting. How do you figure that this is what is part of the Cloward Piven strategy? I don't understand what you're saying. Are you saying that asylum, overwhelming the asylum system, is part of the Cloward Piven strategy? I think I would say that that's kind of, I don't know who would be strategizing. Kelly, thank Elon Musk for giving Donnie $270 million for his campaign, and otherwise he'd lost. Yes. I think that Musk's massive contribution was a significant factor. I don't know who wants what war criminals, why do we want, you want criminals in the White House. We are afraid to criticize or disagree with Islam. This is just weirdness. You don't seem to be all that afraid of talking about Islamization and Sharia law infiltration because of Islamophobia and racism. I don't know why you think you're afraid of that when you're sitting there prattling on about it. And I don't know why you're prattling on about it. I don't know what this has to do with anything anyone has said in this entire conversation. This seems kind of like out from left field. It's almost like you're just being Islamophobic. Yes, and so we're all going to become you know what country has the most Muslims? What European country has the most Muslims, or the highest percentage of Muslims? Would you believe it's Russia? Did you know that? Wife and I never voted for an orange invasive species. Okay. The whole point of the Second Amendment was to overthrow a tyrannical government. Having a gun at protest sounds like the Second Amendment work. This is what I'm saying. I mean, it just kind of seemed like the people that should have been on this the hardest are the Second Amendment people that have been arguing for this. Bill Clinton signed a law that gives them authority to know. Well, he didn't, and it wasn't a law. It was more a policy change. Unfortunately, one of the issues is that we have avoided immigration law updates to the immigration laws, and so everything has just become more and more by executive order. So this was an executive order, and I think that what you're referring to is the I can't think of the policy, but I think under Clinton it was like there was a minimum amount of days that, like it was 3 days or something under Clinton, where if you were apprehended within 3 days, you didn't get due process, you just got sent back. Then under Obama, it got extended to 30 days. And then under Trump, the first term, it was extended to 2 years. I don't quite recall all the details of that. But this is also, even with that, there is some degree of process until now. Under Bill Clinton, you didn't have ICE agents cracking down people's door and hauling out American citizens. No, they are not. But again, even if they are, according to your Second Amendment interpretation, organized insurgency is a constitutional right. Sorry, you can't finish a meal because you've only seen him sit at this table. Saying he can't finish a meal because you've only seen him. I don't know what that means. Trump's health is failing. He might go catch up. They're using symmetrical war tactics, yes, trying their best to provoke without meriting full engagement, and they are clearly willing to martyr themselves. Yeah. Just, or can I offer another possibility? Clearly, they just don't think that people should be murdered for exercising their First Amendment rights. Okay, but John, this is my point. When people say that the Second Amendment so the Second Amendment is there to protect us from a tyrannical government, then what does that mean? Because one person is always going to be saying that the government is tyrannical. It's that interpretation of the Second Amendment, which is inaccurate, by the way. That interpretation of the Second Amendment just basically protects anybody from wanting to kill anybody in the government, because all they have to do is say, I was protecting myself from tyranny. What do mean? Like, the actual reason the Second Amendment was passed was to be able to put down insurrections. Before we had the Constitution, we had the Articles of Confederation, which did not give any power to the federal government over any military. So what they did, one of the very first things that they ironed out when they passed the Constitution, when they met for the Constitution, was give the federal government, the president of the United States, power over the militias, and the Congress the power of when to use the militias. Okay? But they still didn't have any, like, definition. There was just like the Congress got to determine like who the can't I just dropped my thought, like who the officers were and stuff like that, the training and like, and who the officers were. There was, some things that were powers that were given over the militias by the Congress, like who was designated officers and what kind of training they got and some things like that. And then the president got to determine where to, like the president could determine when to use them. The governors got to use that too. And so, it's all in the First and Second Amendments, or first in Article 1 and Article 2. Sorry. Hang on, let me. I'm just want to make sure I'm getting my facts right, because I hate when Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 and 16 gives Congress power to provide for calling forth the militias to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. Okay. So they get to determine when to use the militias. And one of the reasons to use the militias is to suppress insurrections. One was also to repel invasions, but one was to suppress insurrections. So they can determine that when to use the military to suppress insurrections. This is important because it was an insurrection that actually provoked getting rid of the Articles of Confederation. There was no ability for the government to put down, the federal government to put down this insurrection. So one of the first things they did was give the government the power to put down insurrections by using the militias. So when they talked about the militias in the Second Amendment, do you think they meant something other than the militias that are in Article 1 or Article 2 of the Constitution? Don't you think that they meant the same thing when they talked about militias? But the Supreme Court, in their finite wisdom in Heller, decided that part didn't matter. So I think that the whole argument that the federal government, or that the Second Amendment was there to protect us against an overreaching tyrannical government and to protect our right to have insurrections whenever we wanted, is completely upside down. The Second Amendment is there to put down insurrections, not to protect insurrections. I have no I honestly know that I know more than you, just based on your statement there. I have done a pretty vast amount of research on Hitler and Stalin and World War II, and also Mao. I actually did a pretty in-depth study when I was in college. I did a thesis on the a term paper, not a thesis, but I did a term paper on authoritarianism and comparing those three people. Due process for anyone arrested in the U.S. jurisdiction. How do foreigners buy property all the time? Yes. The idea that illegal immigrants don't pay taxes is just silly. There's not like, you don't go to the store and buy something and then say, "Oh, I'm illegal. I don't have to pay sales taxes." All the people get due process. Everybody knows that by now. All the people should get due process. But they're not getting it. Originally, to be American was to be white. That didn't change. You're just less American for not agreeing. Come on, guy. At no time in history did any administration ever let that many immigrants in the country. Let that many. What does that even mean? Let that many immigrants. Okay, first of all, you don't even know how many immigrants came in while Joe Biden was president. When you talk about population relative to the immigration surges relative to the percentage of the population of the country at the given time, no, Biden did not. There wasn't the largest immigration surge under Biden. And by the way, asylum laws are there. He followed the laws related to asylum. If you want to change the law, change the law. But don't sit there and then accuse Biden of letting them in because what he did was follow the law. Joe Biden also deported record numbers of people. He deported more immigrants than any president in the history of the country. Well, in 4 years anyway, in one term. Things aren't better now. Things aren't better. Inflation is up. We have civil unrest across the country. You have unemployment up. You have just destroyed our credibility with the entire world. Our rights are being decimated. You think that things are better under President Trump because you are ignoring what actual reality is. Damn, imagine having... I don't even think I have had some pretty original insults. Imagine having TDS and then thinking that TDS is an original insult. Thank you. I like you too. In other words, we've never had a good president. Damn it. I don't know what that was in reference to. Yeah, original insults like TDS. Like, wow, that's like just such a creative mind you have there. What a wellspring of novel thinking. I'm 58, not 70. Um, Actually, I think TDS was originally because, as with everything to do with MAGA, they can't even think of their own insults. They just kind of took an insult that was directed at um, them, like just this knee jerk reaction to defend everything Trump says, everything Trump does. Like that's the real TDS. It's like even after he got um, found, what I don't, even after he got convicted of 34 felonies, they still defended him. No, some people don't. I think Donald Trump is one of them. Go ahead and explain how that's not original. I'll wait. Well, the fact that you use TDS, a known acronym, means that it's not original by default. Like you can't use an acronym that has been used 25 billion times before and then think that it's original. Uh, 0.052% of all people who detained by ICE since Trump were U.S. citizens. Okay, but how? Okay, first of all, 0.05.2% is not a real number. That is based on 170 that one magazine article found. That doesn't mean that that's an all-inclusive thing. Number two, 0.052% is too many. One is too many. Number three, those are the ones that are American citizens, not everybody that is illegally detained. A lot of the people that are being illegally detained are not citizens, but they are present here legally. That is Gestapo. That's making it illegal to be brown and legally here. Elon can't even play Diablo 4 properly. I don't know. I've heard stuff about this. Like I'm not quite sure what the whole Diablo thing with it. Like, didn't he like suck so bad at Diablo he had to get somebody to pretend to be him or something so that he could boost his score? Acorn push for Cloward and Piven. Man, you're going back to Acorn? Do you have mods? I have a mod. Right now, where I just had like I'm not quite sure why, but it might have been because we had banned too many people at one time. And so I had to restart the stream, but we're avoiding blocking people right now because I don't want to get like a second gig in one show. I appealed it, but somebody I guess said that I was a pedo because I was covering the Epstein thing. France has fallen to Muslims. What does that even mean? Like honestly, what do you think that means? That it's fallen to Muslims? Like it's like that's such a weird thing to say. It's just such a weird thing to say. Have you seen the UK lately? They throw you in jail for criticizing immigration. No, they do not. Russia, because they conquered their lands. Yes, Russia has the highest Muslim population, but I am pretty sure it's been a while since Muslim conquered Russia. Like, what does that even mean? Like, it's hard to believe Islamophobia when I keep getting called out. It's so hard to be. I can't even be Islamophobic without being called Islamophobic around here. How can you claim what America would have been if the other candidate won? Do you have a crystal ball or red tea leaves? Do you have tonight's winning Powerball? I think I do think that I can say with a relative degree of certainty that Kamala Harris would not have raised tariffs on the entire world, that Kamala Harris would not be sending ICE out to arrest anybody that is brown and doing this racial profiling stuff. Oh, that Russian Islam goes back 800 years. Like, it's just as though as though Christianity is a European religion, but you cucks always want to try and take guns away. So now, no, dude, you're the one that sounds stupid because you're saying that we want to take guns away. There has never been a single Democrat nominee for president that has ever wanted to take guns away. No one, not one. But you sit there and you lap that stupid argument up every 4 years. You think that is a Democratic mainstay, that somehow wanting some sort of gun control so that people who are like dangerous don't get guns, that makes us wanting to take away your gun. Does that mean that you're dangerous? The only way that Democrats would want to take away your gun is if you were a dangerous criminal. Are you a dangerous criminal? No? Or yes? I mean, if yes, then you shouldn't have a gun. If not, go ahead, buy a gun. Court documents prove Doge was a ruse to get personal data to influence the elections. That's actually a good point. And that's actually something I should do a PowerPoint on. I think that's something that needs more discussion. Not like the whole thing about Doge, like what it said it was going to do, what it didn't do, what it said it did, and what it actually did. Trump has convinced all the MAGA geniuses that the dirt poor immigrants have taken all their money. Yes. And I've brought this up several times. There's a book called White Trash that, hang on a second, that here, this is my affiliate link. So if you want to read this, it's a great book. I highly recommend it. That it's the history of how elite white people have used the threat of people of color to get poor white people to fight with poor people of color in order to stay rich themselves. That's like a huge part of our history. And it goes through all kinds, like including FDR did it. This is not something that is just Democrats didn't do it and Republicans did do it. Nobody is mentioning the real problem, which is the meddling. Now, somebody was in here with I don't think that the real problem is Israel. I think that there are problems with Israel, but I don't think that they are the real problem. Well, the Americans be Americaning, blah, blah, blah. Vote this, vote that, and not a single strike or proper right. So this person says we need to have a good and proper right. Oh, dude, I love you just for that utterance. A proper riot. We need a proper riot. Are you British? That's such a good comment. If I say I want to ban smoking for years and all of a sudden I start smoking, I look dumb. Yeah, nobody's ever said, nobody, you're acting like Democrats have been saying for years they want to ban guns. They don't say that. Yeah, a well-regulated militia. And then the Article 1 and Article 2, or Article 1 and Article 2 say how that militia is regulated, which is really something. Like that, and you never hear the the Second Amendment apologists talk about how it's regulated. Like, oh, we're an independent militia. Okay, is your militia, what's the wording? Can your militia be called forth to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions? Is it provided for organizing, arming, and disciplining by the Congress? Like, reserved to the states. So are you the state, the state government gets to appoint who the officers are? So, is that your case in your little state militia, your little independent militia? Does that apply? Because the Constitution specifies how the militias are supposed to be regulated, and I don't see any of that. Why does the left continue to allow politicians to weaponize their empathy to be used as pawns in their power play? Unaccompanied minor policy was an absolute disaster that facilitates. Okay, did you know that the unaccompanied minor policy was passed by a Republican administration? It was passed under Bush. It was passed under W. And if the law needs to be changed, then change the law. But that's a law. That's not a policy. Why aren't the Republicans talking about repealing it? Do you believe that there are some communities in the U.S. that are practicing? I don't care, because what you call Sharia law is, as long as they're following the American law, I don't care what their religious preferences are. They have religious ceremonies. So if somebody gets married at a Muslim wedding, I am not going to lose my wig over that. Yeah, you can stop posting murder jokes now. Tyrannical is a Caesar-esque level tyrannical power. I'm just saying that's the word that this is the word that the right wing uses all the time to justify the Second Amendment. Okay. Kind of scrolling through. And do you think this current administration is very similar? Or do you think maybe it's different in every conceivable? I think that this, and you think, I think that this administration is easily the worst, most corrupt administration in my lifetime. I don't know about prior administrations. Even Nixon's administration is like not nearly as bad as this. This is by far the most corrupt administration in American history, to my knowledge, and definitely through the ones that I've been living through. Allows. Okay, but he's not allowing illegal immigration, and that's the problem. What you are calling illegal immigration is not illegal immigration. What Joe Biden is doing is honoring the laws of asylum. He's actually following the law. Donald Trump's the one who's breaking it. He is not letting illegal immigrants through. He is allowing people to come over and claim asylum. And you can claim asylum regardless of legal status. according to the law about asylum. You know this. You stop pretending to be stupid. America allows over 1 million legal immigrants in every year. No, it doesn't. They are allowed to cross the border and say asylum, and that, yes, that is okay. That is 100% okay. That is exactly what the law says. If you have an issue with it, then check the law. But that's also kind of the whole point of asylum. Like, you have to be here in order to claim asylum. If you can't cross the border legally, then how do you ever declare asylum? That's the point of the law. Have you ever read the actual law? Here, let me just read this to you. Just gonna. Okay, so we're gonna share this, and hopefully some people can learn something today. That would be wonderful. Okay, so we're gonna present this screen. All right, this is what the actual asylum law says. All right, stay with me now. Okay, U.S. asylum law, key provisions. The primary law is codified in 8 U.S.C. section 1158, part of the Immigration and Nationality Act, which implements U.S. obligations under the 1951 Refugee Convention and 1961 Protocol. The 1951 Refugee Convention was written after World War II in response to the whole, like Holocaust thing. Okay, a person may apply for asylum if they are physically present in the U.S. or arriving at a point of entry. So that number one qualification to qualify to apply for asylum is you have to be in the United States. To meet the definition of refugee, someone being unable. Oh wait, I wanted the exact quote. I want to read the exact law to you. Any alien who is physically present in the United States, number one, or arrives in the United States, whether or not at a designated point of arrival, because I know that you get all this stuff about, well, they've got to use a point of entry. No, they don't. Not according to the law. And including an alien who is brought to the United States after having been interdicted in international or United States waters. So if you're in a rowboat from between Cuba and here and you get brought here, then you can request asylum, which is why sometimes people have been sent back, irrespective of such alien status. So whether you're here legally or not, whether or not you entered through a point of entry, which, by the way, even Biden did not follow that law, may apply for asylum in accordance with this section. So the actual law only has one qualification to apply for asylum. And that one qualification is you have to be here. It does not matter if you are here legally, but you have to be here. That is the only way you can qualify for asylum, is if you are here. Too many people seem to talk about this law, talk about asylum, have no idea what it even means. The whole difference between an asylee and a refugee is refugees are not here when they request refugee status. An asylum is, by definition, you have to be here. That's what makes it asylum. That's the meaning of the word. So yes, they allowed them to cross the border and say asylum, because that's the only way you can request asylum. Now, let's clarify some other points here, as long as we're on this. Number one, They don't just get to say asylum and get to stay here for 10 years. That's bogus. They have to have, first of all, they have a hearing within, like an immediate hearing within like days, where they sit down with an officer and they have to explain why they are seeking asylum. And to seek asylum, you have to show that there is a credible fear of persecution, and there can be different reasons for that. Your political belief, sexual orientation, religious beliefs, social group, and I can't remember what the other one is. But you have to, there has to be an actual reason that you have fear, that if you get sent back, you're going to be murdered. Okay. Now, social group was expanded under Clinton to include people that were being persecuted by drug cartels. And it was kind of a flip, because it's not like you belong to this social group, therefore you're being persecuted. It was more like you don't belong to this social group, therefore you're being persecuted. So they were, so Clinton did that, Bush did that, Trump didn't do that, Biden did do that. That's number one. So what happened is that there was a backlog of asylum seekers, because there was this whole thing that Trump made up that was about remain in Mexico. And so what happened is all these people remained in Mexico. But this was like just a policy, an executive order by Trump. And what is done by executive order can be undone by executive order. So all these asylum seekers that should have been allowed under Trump to come and request asylum were denied that chance. Please learn what the facts are before you argue with somebody that knows what they are. Okay, so got, almost tipped my laptop over. Oh my goodness. We're going to have some people have some fun with this one. Okay. New release. Whoops. Okay. So this says, newly released email correspondence between Jeffrey Epstein and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak references former Mossad agents who, what was that? Do dirty investigations. Did Boyce ask you to help obtain former Mossad agents to do dirty investigations? This is getting a lot of press. Well, you think it was getting a lot of press then? Okay. No, Preddy did not shove any agents, but whether he shoved any agents is irrelevant. He never was a threat to kill anybody. And he didn't shove agents. He helped a woman up, and then when he was helping her up, they maced him, and his body physically reacted to having been maced. You say Biden followed the law, but what specific law in the Constitution? There are no laws in the Constitution. In the law he was following, as I was reading, 8 USC section 1158, the laws on asylum. At least understand the difference between a law and the Constitution. Do you know that no law, there isn't a single law in the Constitution? Understand what a law is and what the Constitution is. He literally just gave you the evidence for his claim. It's like information they don't agree with just doesn't penetrate. It's like it just bounces off. Congress needs to grow a set of testicles and quit pussyfooting. How is this dude dumb? Well, yeah, it's because I'm not spewing Fox News talking points. That's what it is. He signed an order of stay in Mexico because there is no reason for them to stay there. Same thing happened. Yeah, there's a bit of a difference between a visa and the remain in Mexico policy. With the remain in Mexico policy, what Donald Trump was doing is saying you can request asylum here, but you have to stay in Mexico until you get your hearing date, which is hard because how are you, like they couldn't find out when their hearing date was. And then because they didn't know when their hearing date was or where it was, and they would like move it around and like to different places and stuff. And so then they wouldn't show up to their hearing because they had no way of knowing when or where it was. And also, like the whole thing was bad because you'd look at, like all kinds of civil rights groups didn't like it because the asylum seekers were just easy pickings in Mexico. And they were robbed and they were raped and they were, the whole, they were like over 50% of them were victims of violent crimes. Yeah, agreed. But I don't know what you're referring to. There's lots of things on the internet that aren't true. I will agree with that. But just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's fake either. I don't like these just because arguments because sometimes, most of the time, people are making the just because argument. It's in reaction to the notion that because somebody said, well, it's on the internet, therefore it's true, and not looking at the actual thing that is on the internet. We Hispanics are screwed if all we get is white guilt. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. I don't even know what white guilt is. I've never felt guilty for being white. And that is within our country's power to allow or to not allow. It is. It is. But right now, it's our country's law that you let people in and get and if they are seeking asylum. And that's our law. If you want to change the law, change the law. That's 100% fine. Immigration reform, go for it. Want to change the asylum laws? Go for it. But right now, that's our law. So don't blame Joe Biden for doing what the law says. Given the current state of our country, we should allow new asylum seekers. Yes. We need to follow the law until it changes. That's what the president's job is supposed to be, right? The Congress's job is to make the laws. The executive branch is to review the laws, or to the legislative branch makes the laws. The executive branch enforces the law, and the judicial branch reviews the laws. That's the separation of powers. But we've kind of turned it into the executive branch determines which laws to enforce and which laws to not enforce and when to change the law. And this has been a slow, methodical thing ever since FDR. Like, I'm not just blaming this on Trump. Trump has amped things up. He just, like, we went up, from, like on the volume dial from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And then Trump came along and just cranked it all the way up to 20. Like, there is more about Trump than there has been with anybody else, but this gradual accumulation of extra powers by the executive branch, in large part because the legislative branch isn't doing its job. That is not something new under Trump. No, border crossings are actually one. Border crossings were way down by the time Biden left. Has nothing to do with anything. Number two, you don't even know what border crossings are, apparently, because the way you're using it. Number three, deportations aren't up. Biden deported people at a higher rate than Donald Trump. Crime has not dropped significantly outside of the fact that it was already dropping. It's not like it all of a sudden started to drop. It's been dropping for the last 4 years. Is the US law a lie? Yeah, no, I don't think I think I'm the one saying we should follow the law. He had a gun, so a woman is anyone that that determines that says they're a woman. Why do I care if like if they're trans? Kellyanne is an awesome guy. People, you need to stop criticizing him. He's much more intelligent than you who put him down. Thank you, Randall. And I think, if I remember correctly, you don't agree with everything I say, right? Like, you're not like just agreeing with me. You're just saying that I'm being reasonable in my discourse. When I got my CC teacher said to run to danger as having a gun increase the chances. Yeah, that's your chances of dying by gunfire are greater if you have a gun. And even I think like if you have a gun in your home, your chances of being shot by that gun are greater than the chances of you defending yourself with a gun. This guy is more educated than the majority who's blowing smoke. The US by no means is obligated to take him. No, they're not. So what happened is in 1949, I think, was when they started discussing internationally the right to have asylum. It was because what happened is like Jews that were trying to escape Germany would go to other countries, including the US, and be denied entry. And they were like be sent back to Germany, where they would then be, thrown in a gas oven or whatever. They were being murdered. And so then the after that, in after World War II, the UN, once it got going, one of the first things they did is look at this whole thing. Do you have a right, if you're just a human being, do you have a right to flee a country? Because you can't flee a country if you can't enter another country. You follow me? So do you have a right to flee a country that's going to persecute you and kill you because of your religious beliefs or because of your ethnicity? And so they decided that you have a right to seek asylum. But then the other side of that is, does that mean that anybody can just go to any country in the world and say, I want asylum, and therefore get to move there? There's got to be, because otherwise I'd be in Canada right now seeking asylum. You can't just go somewhere and say, I deserve asylum. So then they discussed, how do we determine what qualifies as somebody getting asylum? And what they decided is that every country determines for itself what constitutes granting asylum. Like, you can go anywhere and seek asylum, but the country gets to decide who they grant that asylum to. So different countries have different, their own laws and their own standards for what constitutes granting asylum. Okay. So the US does have a standard for granting asylum, and it's in the asylum law, and it's those things that I specified earlier, such as, reasonable belief for credible fear of persecution for, your religion, your social group, your race or ethnicity, or uh, sexual orientation. Like that's what our laws are. Like if somebody gay came over here because they lived in a country like in the Arab world or something where they do have Sharia law, and they said if I get sent back they're going to kill me, then they have the grounds to seek asylum. But you can't just say if I get sent back I'm going to be killed. You have to show credible fear. So you have what's called an asylum officer, and the asylum officer, their job is to, one, fact check to make sure that what you're saying is true, and number two, have a hearing with you, a discussion with you, where they determine whether or not you're telling the truth, whether or not the fear is credible. And this is called a hearing, and they determine based on that interview and based on your paperwork, and based on, they like even call back to your home country to verify your story, because it's not always about being gay or whatever, but they validate whether or not what you're saying is true and whether or not your fear is genuinely credible. If you have a credible fear that if you get sent back you're going to be murdered, then you generally get granted asylum. If they feel that you don't have a credible fear, they send you back. And it's been about lately around 30% of hearings pass muster. Like 70% get sent back. There are some people that I've spoken to both asylum officers and asylum lawyers that say a lot of people get sent back that shouldn't be sent back, because some of the things that changed are ridiculous. Like you have to fill out your form properly, and on the form there's a space for children, and it says on the form, if you don't know, or if you don't have children, or if you only have one child, then you have to mark the rest of the empty spaces as NA. So if somebody comes over and they're like, they've got 2 children and they don't put NA in the other 2 boxes, then they can be denied asylum for that, no matter how credible their fear is. So anyway, it is not just the U.S. is obligated to take in all asylum seekers, but all asylum seekers that have a genuine, credible fear, our law is that we just take them in, and we decide what credible fear means, and we just decide when it applies. That's our law. If you want to change the law, change the law, but that is what the law is. Reps, this is somebody looking up credible information and explaining. It is not Fox News. I spent hours with my father applying. He got mail and phone calls. This is an excuse and complacency. I don't know what you mean. Why? I don't know why we're all so pathetic. You can't close the, I don't even know what close the border means. It seems like when Republicans talk about closing the border, they mean just end the right to seek asylum. Because it's not like Joe Biden was just sitting there waving people through or something. I hope not. Down south, it's kind of cool to be part indigenous. Like once, like Elizabeth Warren, indigenous. I got a deportation order decades ago. I complied with in 2 business days using my own money. Right. What do you mean? Okay, first of all, Donald Trump wasn't president 2 years. You have people, you have ICE literally showing up to immigration court to arrest people who are literally there to comply. They voted for a 34-time convicted felon and then pretend to cry about an immigrant committing a misdemeanor. It's not about a crime. And it didn't even become a misdemeanor until, I think, the 90s. Some of the people they've arrested didn't even commit the misdemeanor. Like, it wasn't a misdemeanor until relatively recently. What was the reason? Migration has been built of complacency, sanctuary cities, and lack of resources. Yeah, I think you need to read more. Like, you're just there's it would require like 2 hours of coursework to get through that. And it's like all of that is just so not true. It's like you don't understand what sanctuary cities are. You're just like pretending everybody that I don't know what the complacency you're talking about. We need to update our immigration laws is what we need to do. And I think every time I see a Republican talk about sanctuary cities, I see a Republican who doesn't know what sanctuary cities are. Trump screwed America when he bombed our bipartisan border bill. Yes, he did. Hey, hell, Kelly, you and I do not always agree. I don't even always agree with me. And to be honest, if I ever met anybody that agreed with everything I said, I would be scared as hell. My wife certainly does not always agree with me. The worst part about my wife not always agreeing with me is my wife isn't always wrong. Kelly is the first person I've seen that actually pulls up information. Hey, I'm always happy to learn too. If I've been corrected on my show and admitted it, I agree with most of what you were saying. I don't agree with others talking diarrhea. Asylum seekers seem to apply for asylum within 1 year of their last entry. Yes, they have to apply for asylum within 1 year. That is a qualification. I do support the status of an asylum seeker. See, the reason we got on the whole asylum seeker thing is the 5-year-old kid with the blue bunny and his dad. They were here literally waiting for their asylum hearing. They were here seeking asylum. And so then some people started saying they shouldn't have been here illegally and all that. And then they tried to force them to self-deport. When they're here seeking asylum. Their reason they have a reason that they're seeking asylum. I know several Mexican Americans that got citizenship through the standard process. Yes, that. Okay, so here's the thing about the standard process. For the most part, there are two ways that you can get citizenship or get a green card through the standard process. One way is through employment. And in order to get a permanent visa for employment, you almost have to have at least a bachelor's degree, usually a graduate degree. Very, very few jobs. And then there's a whole lot of stuff that goes along with that. That's one way. The other way is to have a relative, a qualifying relative. That's where a good chunk of them of people that come from. Those are the two ways that almost everybody that comes through the right way nowadays can get a visa. If you do not have a bachelor's degree and you do not have a relative living here, there's virtually zero way to migrate here legally. That's the thing people don't know. It's like the people that you were able to see, like the people you talked about that got standardship through the standard process, They were able to get it through the standard process. But how did they get it? They did not just, they weren't, like coming over here with a high school degree. There's no line to get in. There's no visa they can get. There are two kinds of visas for people, like common working class visa, and both are temporary. There's an H-2A and an H-2B visa. An H-2A visa is a agricultural visa. H-2B visa is a non-agricultural visa. So it's one or the other. Those are the two, and they're both temporary. They're both for seasonal work. H-2A is really hard to get, and almost everybody that gets those is from Mexico, because one of the things to get them is the person that hires you has to pay for your transportation, which is one of the reasons they're really hard to get. They're expensive for the employer. The other place, weirdly, that the second most places, second biggest place they come from is, believe it or not, South Africa. But those are people that are brought over to do like supervisory work, and they're coming over from the South African plantations, and they're white people. So but you can't convert from an H-1A or an H-2A or an H-2B to a permanent resident. Like, you can't. That's always going to be seen. There's no pathway to citizenship through a temporary work visa. The problem with the H-2B visas is there's only like 66,000 of them given out per year. And there's about 6 million people working in those jobs. 6 million illegal immigrants. That's most of the illegal immigrants are filling jobs for H-2B visas, which are only 66,000 of available. So while I respect that the Mexican Americans, got citizenship through the standard process, I would just say that the standard process is extremely limiting, especially if you don't have family members here or a bachelor's degree. Good, Crusher of Skulls. How are you doing? We need more people following immigration guards, regardless of power. I think, yeah. And I think we need to change some of those laws. Like, honestly, it's better for America if we have more immigration, and if we can make it legal. If America's entire strength throughout its history has been by immigrants taking up a lot of the low income jobs, because they're willing to come over here and do the work that we don't want to do. I'm not saying pick our cotton or any of that kind of nonsense that MAGAs want to talk about. No, I'm talking about from throughout our entire history. It's always been immigrants doing the low wage jobs, because those people end up becoming the entrepreneurs. They end up their children become entrepreneurs. They're coming over here for the American dream, and they know that it starts at the bottom, and they're willing to work their way up. They're not taking it for granted. That's how we built our railroads. You know how many immigrants were involved in building our railroads? Chinese immigrants, Mexican immigrants, Irish immigrants, and free black slaves who weren't immigrants, but the railroads were built by immigrants mostly. Who do you think built our skyscrapers in New York City? A lot of that was Italian immigrants. They were legal Italian immigrants. Legal. I want to make sure they were legal. They were here legally, and they were immigrants. But they could be. There was an immigration status for them to have. The same thing with the Irish and the Mexicans and the Chinese immigrants that built our railroad. The same thing with the Irish immigrants that settled the plains. There's always been a way for immigrants that could come over here and take up the low wage jobs. There isn't that there now. And we need that there. That is the strength of America. And you look at, it's not just me riffing off the cuff here. There's like studies by places like Wharton that show that it's a huge surplus, a huge bonus to everything from unemployment. It actually creates more jobs than they take. It helps our GDP. It increases federal revenue. It does all kinds of positive things for our economy. And it doesn't even have the negative impact on wages that you might think, because once you start increasing the legal way that people can come over, then that means that they have to be paid the legal wages. We need immigration reform. Yes, and if at some point like if the asylum officer decides that they there's two asylum tracks. There's affirmative and there's defensive. Affirmative is if you turn yourself in and say you want asylum. Defensive is if the Border Patrol nabs you and then you say I want asylum, like you get caught, then you get put in a defensive track. And it's a slightly different thing. You see an immigration judge instead of an asylum officer. And there's some other things that we don't need to get into that are procedural, and in terms of like how strong a case you need. But if you get turned down the affirmative track, you can go to the defensive track and take another swing at things. But in general, yeah. If you get denied asylum, you have to go back. Yeah. I looked into asylum for Australia from the USA. It's basically no, Australia won't grant me asylum to escape from Trump or the fascist GOP agenda at the federal and state level. Yeah, it's for it, like it has to be like a real, I don't know about Australia's thing, but at least for America, it has to be a reasonable fear. Like the story that really sticks in my head, when I was studying this, I talked to an asylum lawyer that was explaining, the whole process to me and everything. And he told me about this client he had that was a young woman that had two sons. Well, a middle-aged woman that had two sons. One of them had been murdered by the cartel because he would not join the cartel. So then while they were, her and her living son were at the older son's funeral, the people that murdered him came to the funeral, sat behind her, and then threatened both of their lives unless her younger son joined the cartel. So after the funeral was over, she went home, grabbed what she could, and walked across Mexico to get away from them and request asylum. All right. I would say that she has a reasonable fear. They already murdered her one son. What's going to, like we're supposed to believe she didn't murder her. They wouldn't murder her second son. Like she did not have a credible fear. So there are people that have credible fears. There was a magazine article I read back in 2019. So I don't know if I could find it, but they went through and this was while Remain in Mexico was still a thing. And they went and they looked at some of the people that were being rejected for asylum, and they were going back to countries like Guatemala, where they were coming from, to find these victims or these asylum seekers and see how they were doing. And like 30% of them had been murdered upon being sent back. I would say those people that were murdered when they got sent back had a credible fear. So, like, credible fear is a real thing. Like, people really do get murdered. Laws are threats made by the dominant socioeconomic ethnic group in a given nation. It's just a promise of violence that's enacted. And, well, okay. Many of these problems are people getting deported or getting deported orders and not leaving. No, that's not what the problems are. I don't know what you're talking about. They aren't getting deported orders and not leaving. I don't even know what a deported order is. If you're talking about getting deportation orders and not leaving, that's, I think, what you're confusing here is that when somebody gets convicted of a crime in the United States and they're here illegally, they serve the sentence out in the United States. Then once their sentence is over, they get a deportation order, and the state can't deport somebody. Like the state of Minnesota can't deport anybody. That's not in their purview, not legally. They don't have any budget for it. They don't have the means for it. They don't have the legal right to do it, which goes back to like 1880 or something. It used to be states could deport people, and each state had their own kind of immigration laws, but that all got changed. And so anyway, in the current day, in the modern day, states can't deport people. And so what they do is they tell ICE, hey, we have this guy that is getting released, and we need you to come pick him up. And so there's this deportation order. They come, then they send ICE they notify ICE that he's coming up. They can't hold that person beyond when their prison sentence is up. And so then when their prison sentence is up, they get released. So that's on ICE not coming to pick them up. And ICE, this is going back decades. ICE has always said it's about funding, but then when they got this monster bill of funding, then they're not doing that. What they're doing is going around and like racially profiling and arresting 5-year-olds. I don't have any problem with ICE arresting people with deportation orders. Nobody is saying that they shouldn't be arresting people with deportation orders. So this is a straw man argument. Okay, I did not realize my smell was that bad. But I have a beard. Why are 90% Army aged men? So you're saying, first of all, 90% aren't Army aged men. You're confusing another thing. Asylum seekers are not 90% Army aged men. First of all, Army aged men is like this huge thing that it's like, what does that mean? Like men between 18 and 60 or whatever? What is Army aged men supposed to mean? That's like a good chunk of any population, right? But there are the gotaways, which are people that get snuck over. And a big percentage of those are what they call, like military age men. And a lot of them are actually in the cartels. And what the cartels would do, this is again why we need to look at actually changing what the asylum laws are. Because what happens, what they were doing is, and this also has to do with the whole stockpile of asylum seekers from Trump's first term. What they would do is they would get a bunch of asylum seekers, the cartels on the Mexican side, and they would say, okay, you guys go through right now. And so they would send these massive number of asylum seekers at the same time. Then, because of that influx, they'd need to process those people. And to process those people, they had to bring in Border Patrol agents that would normally be border patrolling the border. But they bring those in, and then the cartels would send through their cartel people while that was happening. So they knew what our system was, and they played our system against us. And that doesn't mean that the people that were seeking asylum weren't seeking asylum. That means that the cartel was running the whole operation. That doesn't mean that the asylum seekers were cooperating. It just means they didn't want to get killed. So that means also means a couple of other things, right? Like, one, we need more. We need more Border Patrol officers to process people so that the cartels can't game the system. And it also means we needed to adjust how we did things. That's why they came up, or why they changed the policy to meter the number of people that can come through at a time, so that they couldn't do that. There was like a 67% drop in crossings Biden's final year after that policy change. So, like, I really wish that people would and actually learn what was happening with the whole thing before they talked about it, because there's just a lot of things that are just wrong concepts. Okay, but that doesn't mean they don't have a criminal. Like, can you imagine the death penalty for not filling out not filling out a form correctly? They can go to another Spanish speaking. Or, like, what is that supposed to mean? Why? Anyway, NGOs were caught. That's this right away. As soon as you just say NGOs were caught doing fraud, it's just a bogus comment. How many people can you let live in your home? No, nobody's living in my home, dude. I didn't have any illegal immigrants living in my home during Biden. Yes, he spoke. He blundered a sentence. If an illegal immigrant crossed the border and didn't come through the point of entry, they're criminals. Okay, but if they came through and didn't come through a point of entry, they're still eligible for asylum, as I've already addressed by reading the actual law on asylum. I lived this. What did you live? I mean, I don't know what you're suggesting here. Your experience doesn't take away the genuine experience of anyone else. Sanctuary cities are cities that will not assist ICE in deportation. And that's perfectly legal. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that you have to allocate part of your resources to enforce federal law. And states and cities make priorities. They vote on things. They get to allocate how they utilize their resources. If they choose not to utilize their police force to enforce federal law, that's perfectly fine with me. There's no laws that say they have to. We definitely need comprehensive immigration reform. Like, I don't know what that makes it a canard, but we haven't had any comprehensive immigration reform in 40 years. And clearly the laws we have are not working as they are written. The data on sanctuary cities is sanctuary cities have a higher income and sanctuary cities have lower crime rates. There is literal data to prove that. I don't know which side you're arguing from, but that is what the actual data shows. Asylum seekers are supposed to apply for. No, they are not. That's a myth. There is no such thing as that. The first safe country thing, that's just a myth. That is something Trump said one time, and people think it's true. There is no such thing as a first safe country rule. And that's number one. Number two, Mexico is not a safe country. People are coming from Mexico seeking asylum. So it doesn't become safe if you're not from there. But also, there is no such thing as a first safe country. There is a third safe country. And a third safe country is if you have an actual agreement with a third country that they can go to us, they can get that country will seek asylum seekers. The only country we have a third safe country agreement with is Canada. The complacency that I've seen with my own eyes is many people avoiding being deported and can avoid deportation without the help of the local institute. I don't know what I genuinely, I'm not trying to be mean. I genuinely have no idea what you're talking about. It just seems like a lot of words that in a very subjective point of view. What's wrong with requiring an educated immigrant? What's wrong with letting immigrants who aren't educated come over? It's not about requiring an educated immigrant. We have jobs that need to be done that we don't want to do. What's wrong with letting people come over that want to do those jobs? What's wrong with doing the best thing for America? No, I am not advocating for slave labor. And as I said, I'm actually arguing the exact opposite. If you give them legal status, then you also give them legal protection. That means that you're actually making sure that they can't be taken advantage of. And slave labor is such a dishonest, horrific use of what illegal immigrants are. Illegal immigrants are people that want to come here, and they come here on their own. Nobody's forcing them here. They are people that can leave when they want. They can move about freely. They are getting paychecks. It's just such a dishonest thing to say slave labor. Like, why? Why do you have to? Why can't we have reasonable discourse without straw men and hyperbole and nonsensical arguments like you're basically for slave labor when I have specifically said the opposite? Trump basically put a millionaire. Yeah, now it's like you can just buy citizenship. The intent of visas is to water down the wages of American citizens. The Party of Labor should. No, that's not the intent of visas. I mean, your entire argument is based on something just nonsensical. This has set our labor back. No, what set our labor back is the war on unions. Reminder that if the $10,000 immigration fee instated by the current administration would have disqualified all our immigrant worker families from coming here in the 20s and 30s. Right. And it's like, that was good. That helped us. We don't have immigrant workers anymore. How many foreigners live with you? Zero. Exactly. Okay. All right. Well, I am into hour 5 now, and I think it's time to go. All right, guys. We will be back tomorrow to continue whatever discussion we're discussing. We'll talk later. Appreciate you, even if you don't agree with me. Talk to you later.